Hello. Okay, it looks like it's gone up. Hello there, Zero Samael. How is things? Oh, that's one thing I probably should do. Gonna pop out chat so it's a little bit easier for me to see things. Hey, Arlith. Can homework wait? I mean, like, it's not gonna be all that intense of a stream, so theoretically you could work on homework and just listen. Or, you could just ignore everything and watch me stream like you want to. Sorry, that's tabletop audio. It's just generally what I listen to when I'm working and stuff. I'll probably end up shutting it off in a bit. I don't know. He's pretty cool with streaming that kind of stuff, but I know it annoys some people, so. But it's just ambient tracks for 10 minutes each. I don't tend to save a playlist, though I think I have like 9 or so running right now. Oh, give me 1 second. It's cat time. Hello, Mage. How is things? I was just letting the cat out of, well, over the patio and into my brother's room. Yeah. Leave it on for a little while. Are you guys all excited to talk about lore today? I asked around on the Discord last night, and it seems like probably start with Mars, talk about the 4 blocks for a little while. Then some of the macro stuff about the 3 of the origins, at least the more homebrewy versions of the origins, though human debris is kind of a thing in the show, so it's going to be a little bit weird. Then we might spend some time building a couple of the corporations. Yes, Replica Rabbit. It is full of lore. Where we'll talk about all things, I guess, just kind of a bit shit. Not really shit, but a bit shit. I mean, if we go by that picture from Gallahorn in episode 9, there was a giant hole in Australia, though people keep claiming it was a mobile armor incident. I kind of want it to be they just like at the start of the Calamity War they dropped a colony before the mobile armors really became a thing. So I kind of want it to be just like, yeah, some rebels dropped a colony, and that eventually led into the Calamity War. So it's like somewhere between UC and Seed. Yeah, it's Calamity era tech, I think? Or is it under the timeline on the wiki? Cosmic. Oh no, it's not Calamity era, it's post-disaster, duh. Oh, that's mobile suit frames, was it technology? Just under post-disaster? Yeah, it's just under post-disaster. Yeah, if you look over here in Oceania, there's just a giant hole that's concurrently about 80 kilometers wide. Yeah, it's probably just an homage to it. Like, it's cool, but like, they haven't mentioned it at all, and no one's like brought attention to it, so I don't think it's actually a thing. But I can dream, man. I can dream. So the thing with the Calamity War that I've always thought was that it doesn't start with mobile armors. Mobile armors were the logical extreme to the two sides slowly running an arms race with each other. How I imagine it is actually both sides developed some sort of mobile armor, but then one of them ended up going Skynet. It doesn't matter which side, because after both sides, or after one of the sides develops artificial intelligence and it starts spreading out, it infects or takes over the enemy mobile armors as well. So you get this kind of union of two separate technology stances into one versus the rest of everyone. And Gallahorn forms out of this and kind of gets everyone together and is like, well, we have this bigger threat than what we're currently, than our petty squabbles. So we need to get together and kill this thing. And due to what had happened, eventually Gallahorn succeeds, but I'm imagining like all of this gets together and even the creation of Gallahorn actually happens before the Gundams. I know people are saying like the Gundams built Gallahorn, but I have this thing where it's like, no, humans built Gallahorn and the Gundams were the response of Gallahorn. Alright, what are we listening to now? Oh. Saw one that was Cyberpunk Bar. Cyberpunk Bar. I really should log in because he's actually, I'm a patron of him, but I'm too lazy. I'll be real with you. I mean, it entirely could be an offshoot of UC. I just don't like the idea of it because I think UC is its own thing, and I really hate like, oh yeah, this is what happened between UC and Reconquista. I kind of want to keep all the timeline separate. Like Reconquista I'll accept because Tomino's on drugs. Like, cool. You know, it's after turn A or before turn A, depending on who you ask. And I'm the before turn A kind of person as well. But, you know, Reconquista is its own thing, but I want to keep my other timelines apart, damn it. Also, this map does bring one of the interesting questions. So, what's with Greenland? Also, Antarctica. Antarctica, I can kind of understand people not being there. But Greenland? Like, 12 people live there right now. Did they just die and no? They're like, no, we don't go there anymore. So I have this idea for Gallahorn that it's like Vingolf or the Hall in Valhalla. Or not Vingolf, Valandishsphere, I believe it's called. The Halls of Valhalla. They have a base named after that, but we've never seen it. We don't know anything about it. So my idea is it's almost central to Antarctica. It's this giant base that like they can train hundreds of thousands of people at once, where a good majority of their Earth-based military lies. and it's in the center of Antarctica where a mobile armor development center or something was that was taken over and is now under watch by Gallahorn. It's really the question I've always also wondered with the mobile armors is like, was the first one actually named after an angel, or did they adopt the angel nomenclature later? Did it start that way, or was it different? Since we're probably never going to get a Calamity War anime, and I really hope we don't, because it would kill the awesomeness that is the Calamity War. I think that the angel thing was what was classified later, either at the end of the war or after. But ironically, if I'm ever running the game and you guys ever see like one of the early mobile armors, it's gonna be Metal Gear. Just so I can make Shadow Moses jokes. I've already planned. Yeah, they could be neutral. But it's like, I personally don't think Gallahorn cared about that kind of stuff. I think they're like, yeah, you get this portion, you get this portion, you get this portion. And Oceania, you get what's ever left over. We don't care about you. You guys are kind of dicks. Yep. Probably Rex. I like the more monstrous looking Metal Gear. I mean, like, we could do Ray if you really want. Probably both, to be honest. But I think, like, the big mobile armor you would fight would be Rex. I sadly don't have any good pictures of Rex, which was also one of the issues I was running into, but I'll probably, commission somebody to make me a picture of Rex, because it's not too hard. And surprising amount of artists are Metal Gear Solid fans, so it works. But tangents aside, should we start actually talking about Mars, or do we want to keep talking about Gallahorn? And, my ideas of the Calamity War. It sounds like a fat Irish guy making a cow impression. Yeah, actually, yeah, you guys can see my mouse. Okay, I imagine Vingolf is somewhere around the Azores, kind of like right in the middle of Europe and North America. And they have, more ground-based facilities in Greenland. Like, I'm having them with kind of massive transport planes like the Garuda. So in my version of it, they have like air bases and their manufacturing centers there, while Vingolf, which is for all the rich and the 7 stars, is out in the ocean where there's no pollution or corruption or anything like that, and you can just kind of ignore what had happened into the past because you're great and awesome, and you don't need to deal with things that the lower class has to deal with. Alright, so let me see if I can manage to pull this off. I don't know how well pictures work in with Google Map or Google Docs. Do I have one with the Platina? See, that was from another game. Yeah, you guys can't see it, so it's fine. So I made a map of Mars like a couple of odd years ago. It's been a long time now. I'm looking, I used to have a copy of it, but I don't remember if I have what kind of copy of it I have. So I have this one, which it's not a very good picture for you guys. Yeah, you can't really tell unless I zoom in. This is based off of a height map of Mars. Yeah. This is all the blue part is basically the lowland or the Platino, where if it had been Earth-like, this is where the water would be. I used to have one where this was isolated and there was no water there, but this is kind of what it's based off of. So Gundam frames are made of something called special metal, because, you know, we don't like being very descriptive about things. Special metal alloy, to be specific. It is invulnerable by everything but the dance life. The dance life is the only thing we know so far that can damage it, and we don't even think it can destroy it. Mainly because dance life are also made out of special metal alloy. It's weird. So before it pasted, you could see it appear. Interesting. Interesting. Mars map. Oh. I still have the Photoshop file for it. Well, the GIMP file, technically. Oops. Let me re-export it. Shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds. Yeah, you guys can't see that either. I will say, I really like Streamlabs' window capture. It's not as garbage as the other window captures. So, yeah. This is the lowland platina for Mars. That's a little bit too much. Little wee bit. Ah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so the stream is almost permanently delayed by 40 seconds. It's like 42 and some change. I have tried to decrease the latency, but every time I do, it just doesn't work. Like, whatever I'm Streamlabs or whatever I use to go live decides that, yeah, you didn't set it to low latency mode. You're in high latency mode. Like, no, I set it to low latency. Thank you. So... yeah, well, technically normal latency mode. But yeah, this is the map of Mars. Cherise is somewhere along this, not archipelago, but if it was water, it would be like an inlet, like right here somewhere. Usually I place it like kind of around the middle. Copernicus Crater, which is where I used to have the capital of the African Union territory, is right here / right here, because this technically wraps around, so this is the cutoff, and it kind of goes like that. So, I know you're kind of joking about the Kira thing, but quite honestly, I was messing around with lore a couple of days ago on the Discord, and I made a Church of Jesus Yamato as a legit thing. Hey, Crossfire. So, honestly, if Kira wasn't genetically engineered, he'd just be kind of a dude. But if he was like his seed mode self, he'd be pretty fine, because I think he could adapt to combat in the world. Because he did have really good twitch reflexes. I don't think he would get a Gundam, though. I think he would end up just being like a pirate leader or something. Or some sort of like middle manager of a corp, who every time pirates comes, he absolutely kicks their ass, but does almost nothing afterwards. But yeah, for the couple of people who are in the Discord, they can tell you all about the Church of Jesus Yamato. It's great. I even made like Shin the Redeemed, Atherin the Betrayer. God, what was Lacus? Lacus the Chaste, Mirialia the Adulteress, and there's a couple of other patron saints. I'll build it out the rest for the game, and then we'll talk about it over stream. It'll be amazing. Be so much fun. Yeah, so this is Mars. We know at least from IBO that Mars was at one point divided into 4 economic blocks in the Malta due to the Malta Conference. Mars wasn't really divided through any ethnic lines or people lines. It was literally just equally split up 4 times, which means a good portion of what everyone got was likely some of the lowland. We know for one, which Charisse or Charisse, depending on what you call it, which was where the main story took place, would be somewhere in here. And then most likely their territory would have included kind of around here, and then some of the up top, because, you know, you just get an equal cut of the planet. So ironically, they get about the most upland territory and the most mountainous territory, which resulted in Charisse being metal rich. I want to say it was in 2? It was PDO2 that... Yeah, PDO2 was the Malta Conference. Also, my amazing spelling that I totally wasn't paying attention for. Hey, Digital Devil. So, Evan, we'll go over pirates in a little bit. We're actually going to talk about the nomads, which are partially, or not nomads, the Spaceborne or space truckers, as I call them, which are tangentially related to pirates. But basically what pirates do is in IBO, since you can't really destroy a ship, you just damage it enough and they partially pirates, partially salvagers. And you just kind of try to build up a big enough empire mining the old crafts and battlefields from the Calamity War till you're powerful enough to step out onto the world stage and start making changes and developing your own corp, going legit, that kind of stuff. Yeah, except for my pirates aren't Gundam pirates, it's just like blowing things up. I like pirates. But yeah, so it was divided into Mars was divided into 4 blocks. There's Charisse, which was owned by formerly owned by Arbrow, I should say. They're incredibly rich in what's called half metal, which I used to get half metal and special metal mixed up because special metal is a dumb name. Half metal is a sort of ferrous object. It's somewhere in between, I think, boron and iron on the periodic table, something weird like that. And it actually it produces a near perfect effect when in a sphere. So if you stick anything inside of it, no electric charges or anything will come to the outside. And theoretically, you can even make like cabling and stuff out of this, so you can have cables coming out of your perfect sphere. This is the basis of the God, what are the engines called? I can't remember. Ahab reactors, that's it. God, I don't know why that left me. But this creates kind of the basis for why the Ahab reactors work, is they're sitting in a sphere of special metal alloy, with inside of it's a sphere of half metal. And inside of that is something else, which inside of that is something else, which all the way at the smallest bit you can get is about a hand-sized black hole. Yes, every reactor in IBO runs off of 0-point modules. Yeah, you could translate it as rare metal, special metal, whatever you want to call it. But if we have rare metal, that's even worse to me than special metal, because that's just like, yeah, it's hard to get. Not that it's particularly good at anything, it's just hard to get. But yeah, so you have this thing called an Ahab reactor at its very core, which runs off of a black hole surrounded in half metal. This actually gave Arbrow Charisse and in turn Arbrow really powerful economic power for a good portion of the while, and they became very rich and powerful. But sometime around 200 PD, uh, I think it was the Noctis Council made it so that the citizens of Arbrow and the Charisse government were their own entity. They still had connections to Arbrow itself, but they policed themselves basically. They did their own taxes and they're their own country. But the thing that they don't mention about that is all their economic ties are still really heavy. Charisse had to send all of its products, every single one, out into space, to Earth, to Arbrow to get authorized, and then back to Mars to be sold. So you couldn't just go down the street and buy a loaf of bread that was made. You had to wait 5 weeks for it to go to Mars and then back to get a loaf of bread. It just doesn't work. It absolutely economically destroyed Charisse, which, right around PD 300 or so, they're entering their maybe fourth, fifth economic depression because of this, and that's why the Noctis Conference Economic Conference starts up again, which is that thing that Cordelia came and spoke before of and talked about independence for Mars. Sorry, I was reading chat. Yeah, so you have the Noctis, what is it? What did they officially call it? Oh, the Nokius July Assembly. That's what Cordelia stood before and was talking about the independence of Mars, which many people believe that to be the start of it, but it wasn't really. Apparently, the actual independence movement started in '02, but they chose Cordelia as a figurehead and started breaching out using that, which really got the wheels turning. Got eventually deregulation of half metal, so Charisse got the chance to sell it themselves. But this happens in 316, so it's a little bit too little too late for most people. But by 321, we know that Mars goes independent. Yeah, it's actually kind of based off British political theory, or economic theory, where everything that was made in the colonies and even made in India, not by the East India Company, had to be sent back to the mainland, which is Britain, not even Ireland, but Britain, to be stamped and identified. So a lot of smugglers would create their own stamps, or just go sell to their neighbors under the table with the British. That led to a bunch of issues for almost everyone. But it also led to the American Revolution, so it kind of worked out for people. But the East India Company was the only one who was exempt from that, because they were funded by the crown itself. And ironically, it became the strongest economy in the world because of that, and they controlled most of the trade coming out of India and all that kind of stuff. But they directly paid their taxes to the king, so the king was like, "Great, let's do it. Like, who cares?" Yeah, because their money was worth a lot less. So then they started growing cotton in India, which pissed off the Americans in the South. And eventually, a ship full of tea sent from India would go to North America after having been tax stamped, and then would be thrown overboard and start the American Revolution, but that's not important. So we know Charisse was rich, and now they're not. So they have a high population base, and they have formerly rich people who are trying to grasp control. They also house some of the larger bits of Galahorn. One of the orbital stations is actually right above Charisse City, which is the capital of Charisse, for obvious reasons. But it's ironically not the position of the capital of Gallahorn on Mars. Co- As the head of the Mars branch, Coral was the guy who they murdered in episode 7. Well, they defeated in episode 7 and then got killed. Oh well, it's not important. Just Gallahorn's place on Mars. Did they mention it here? That's on Earth. Glandishsphere? Yeah. Vingolf is one of them. It's not important. I'll remember it eventually. It's fine. Nah, it's not fine. It's driving me crazy. Yeah, you know what? I'll make something up later. It's probably actually on the Jikantatsu website, like, or wiki. I don't know why they made an individual wiki for Iron-Blooded Orphans, but they did. Oh, Glandishsphere, yeah. Eh, it's not important. I won't worry about it too much. So we have 3 other economic blocks. One for each of the factions. The SAU, or the Strategic Alliance Union. We have one for the Oceania Federation. And then we have one for the African Union. So, what we do know about these blocks is the African Union was the first one with an established, was in control of the first established settlement on Mars. We also know that the first landing point on Mars in post-disaster was in the Copernicus crater. That is where, in my first game, I created the city of Copernicus, which was the original landing site of on Mars and the landing site of many capital ships or colony ships that were before the terraforming effort. They were just like bubble craft at the time. And slowly out from Copernicus out to the different regions, they started terraforming it. The terraforming, of course, is kind of falling apart due to years of neglect and corruption from Gallahorn and all that kind of stuff, because Gallahorn is technically in charge of the terraforming, but it's kind of laid off to civilian corporations who, like, Gallahorn doesn't even check, so they don't even try. So, going off of Copernicus City, you know, they mostly land in the larger craters that would have shielded them from the dust storms in the area around them, because at least at the time dust storms were still really bad. Meteors, there was no, you know, atmosphere, so meteor strikes would be dangerous and deadly and all that kind of stuff. Even solar radiation and winds could be pretty bad, so they would land their ships in craters that would cover them. So my theory on this was, you had the other capital, the first original colonies on Mars would all start landing in these either very hilly protected areas or craters. So since Sharice already owns Arbrow, was eventually founded by Arbrow and that kind of stuff, I didn't really have anything to worry about. And since I had tangentially gave them this territory here, Nobody else was. There's no other major cities in here for the most part. There's some smaller ones that have sprouted out since Sharice's got founded, but I didn't put any of the other large ones there. You can if you want to. I in turn had one land here, which is the Hellas Platina, or Hellalas, Hellas, and that was the last one that was actually formed at the time, or was founded technically at the time. And of the four major cities on Mars, it was one of the poorer ones. See, because there's 4 blocks, so of course there's 4 major cities. Real quick, yes, Gallahorn was in charge of most high technological things that they, totally maintained and did things with. They totally didn't get corrupt and just foist it off on other people. That would never happen. That's crazy. But yeah, so I have Gallahorn that had once been in charge of terraforming, but they're no longer in charge of Well, they've contracted out the terraforming requirements, but they don't really give a shit about Mars. They don't even check anymore. They have like once or so a year they send in an inspector from the investigatory bureau to take a look at it, make sure all the machines are maintained and up and running. But after, that 2-3 hour inspection, nothing for a year. But we'll get into terraforming eventually after we expound out from there. But yeah, imagine being the poorer city on Mars. It was already bad. This is even worse. And then the final one, I had them land on kind of this upland area around here, kind of like an island. This is Elysium, and a certain future RTS game that was terraformed. It's where one of the major campaigns takes place. This is the Elysium Platina, and that's where I had the final of the major cities. Or Elysium, as I generally call it. That, I believe, was eventually given to the Strategic Alliance Union, or the North America conquered South America and they will be happy or else faction, who are surprisingly, while they're not good guys, they're also not horrible, except for the small border incident that happened at certain points. Like, they're pretty okay, which is surprising. Like, the African Union territory is absolutely horrendous. Like, they're the major source of slaves on Mars. Like, they're the last people to free their own, or they're the last nation to free their own people. Like, it's kind of sad how bad they are, but it makes a fun place. They're talking about it in chat, but yeah, so Atra was working for a brothel before she ran away and got picked up by that bakery / grocery store / general supply store. They kind of switch it all the time. She was working because she was too young to work in the brothel. She was doing chores and stuff for the brothel, but they were mean to her, so she ran away. So Olympus Mons would be over here. You see this kind of like pointing out bit? If you move over about a quarter of an inch, it's about right here. Olympus Mons is in Sharice territory, but it's also the source of one of the major Gallahorn bases. Though nobody quite knows why. It's kind of dumpy and kind of boring. But with a city like that, you could put a major Gallahorn base there if you wanted to, or something like that. Actually build it out and do something fun. So back onto the major cities. I gave Hellas most the territory that's theirs was the most gerrymandered I could. It was like they got this here, and then they had like a thin line down around here and a massive amount of the lowlands. So basically, since the lowlands are mostly, you know, sand, iron-rich, sand-covered desert, and iron's one of the few things you have in such abundance it's crazy when you get to space. They were one of the poorer nations for the very long time. They had nothing to trade, nothing anyone wanted. But as the terraforming kept going on and getting better and better, the ice caps in the top of the planet started to melt. And guess what happens to the lowlands when the ice caps start to melt? You start getting a low quality but still kind of serviceable ocean that's forming from the top. There's never going to be enough water to fill all of the lowlands, but it creates kind of an ocean that forms around Hellas territory. And one of the major things you need if you're going to have human habitation is water. While you can recycle it, it's not perfect. Some of it will always escape into the atmosphere and everything like that. So having an ocean that's owned by you means you become the major supplier in water. Oh, Digital Devil. Actually, in UC, they built the Grand Zom underneath. The upgraded version of the Big Zom that was literally on tank treads. They had to drop the entire mountain on it to destroy it. It's pretty cool. Oh, it's not tank treads. It has a Minovsky flight system. That's right. But yeah, it was built inside Olympus Mons. It's really cool. I like it. Yeah. So Hellas is, while they started the poor there during the Depression, their economy was actually improving because they were supplying water and that kind of stuff to the colony, well, to the cities. I mean, if you want them to fight on mobile armor there, I actually had an idea for in my original game when they were gonna uncover or no, not my original game. In my version of the ending of season 2, they actually uncovered the mother of all mobile armors under Olympus Mons. The Tekadon base had a tunnel that led to it, and due to somebody doing something stupid that I never really decided on, they accidentally released the mother of all mobile armors, which eventually flies out and finds the nearest battle site, which was the Tekadon base, where Galahorn was sieging it, and starts ripping up the entirety of the battlefield, killing everyone, and even like the orbital bombardment from the Dance Life were taken down. But I'll make a video on that eventually. I have thought way too much about that theory, but it's a lot of fun. Though, kind of to jump from there, as Hellas started becoming a major supplier of water, the oceans had kind of started pushing the heat off of the desert areas of Elysium, creating kind of a staunch lowland that they could then start terraforming into major amounts of arable land that they could start growing things on. Originally starting with lichen, then eventually grass and other kind of things, forming just their own ecosystem. And eventually you start getting wide fields of grasses and trees and forests around Elysium, making it actually like a paradise, like the name Elysium. And from there, they actually started major farming efforts where they would grow organic food versus what most other people were eating, which was fake processed food or stuff grown up in the colonies, which isn't as good for you due to the environment. And so Elysium actually kind of became the luxury colony for a good while, growing things like herds of cattle or large amounts of other food that isn't corn. No, Biscuit's family was also farming up in Sherry's. Remember that the farm was only like 9 miles from the Tekadon base or whatever? It was. That's the point of the Sherry's territory that was starting to benefit from the same thing that was making Elysium as powerful as, or as able to sustain farming as well as it did. Yeah, for whatever reason, Biscuit's family was only growing, you know, corn and a little bit of melons because in this world, no one's ever heard of a botanist, which is why when I was talking about skills, I was making fun of the botany skill that, like, when you get it to a certain level, Gallahorn will literally pay you $100 a week to do nothing. Yeah, the rich people get all the meat and the wide variety of foods, while the poor are eating corn. And bread made out of corn. And corn. I believe it was 123. No, that was Montag. Yep. 208. 236 was when the African Union got its autonomy. Well, I mean, if you're developing your botany any higher than the point where Gallahorn is paying you, that means you're using your botany skills and not getting paid by Gallahorn. They know. So you can become an underground botanist, secretly helping the people of Mars or Venus growing your plants and making bank. He was eating figs. Or dates. I can't remember which one. Wow, it doesn't even tell you on the wiki page. That is lame. I'm actually really disappointed in the wiki. Also, I'm changing this song because it makes me need to use the bathroom. Delete. Okay, it was dates. And figs or dates are two separate things, right? Ah, okay, so they're the same plant. They're just different resources based off of the same plant. Gotcha. See, I know I'm not crazy. Sort of. Not really. Real quick, though. 208 was the Oceania Federation, Arbrow was 205. So that puts Elysium somewhere in the middle. And I'll correct this eventually. Yeah, this song got real weird. Alright, as far as the limiters for mobile armors and that kind of stuff, I think it was actually put in there to prevent the pilots from going overboard to defeat mobile armors, because people would start to see like, yeah, that's a mobile armor that's going to kill a ton of people. If I don't give my all, I have failed those people. So the limiters were deliberately put in there to prevent something like that from happening. But people like Mika, who's more in tune with his mobile suit than other people were, especially because it was Barbie, he kind of met with that limiter and then started negotiating with the suit itself. So as far as where this story goes, I generally ended up leaving it to the DMs. That's my kind of thing. We know that Mika and them happen in about 315 to 317, depending on where in the story you want it to be. 315 around October is when the first season ends, and then somewhere, I believe it's March of 317 is where season 2 begins. So generally it's like, I say put it in, if I were to make a game, I'd put it in the early 300s, and you guys, if the game went on 15 years, which I've never had happen in real life, I would make just kind of a joke. It's like, oh yeah, these guys showed up and did this thing, and then there was this big press conference, and yeah, but it would never be directly related to the players. And if I had somebody who wanted, like, say, Barbie or the Astaroth, or hell, even if they wanted to go through the effort of stealing Bale, like, I'd let them. Was it 323? Oh yeah, it was. It was 323 and 325. Yeah, my bad. What happened in 314 then? Or 315? Oh, okay, yeah, that was... Yeah, I was getting that mixed up. My bad. So, as far as what the beast inside the mobile suit really is, I'm kind of in the discretion that it's not, in fact, that there's an AI in there. It actually absorbs the pilot's soul, or kind of an imprint of their personality, of the original pilot anyway, and puts it into the mobile suit, similar to how the mobile armors are. Like, it's a shadow of what the person could be, and what their maximum potential was. At least the original pilot's was. And I think Barbie's pilot was actually killed in it, so Barbie's beast was a lot more powerful than, say, somebody who had just left it and it was still in use. Whereas we know when Barbie was found that the cockpit was literally destroyed. Like, there was nothing left of it. As far as, stealing Barbie goes, it was, for at least one generation, it was the power plant for CGS's base. Like, it was found by the guy before, Makai? Makanai. No, Makanai was the Arbrow guy. Really? Maruba. That's what it was. So yeah, it was found by the previous president of Maruba, or of CGS, with the guy before Maruba. So it could have been a short time ago, it could have been a long time ago, who knows? I think that's up to individual DMs to decide. As far as stealing Bale goes, yeah, that's crazy, but, if you develop a major pirate faction and everything, and you guys, do an orbital insertion right on Vingolf, fight enough to get into the 7 stars chamber, steal Bell, and then run away before the main forces can get there in like 5 hours, all the power to you. I won't stop you. Because for some reason, Bale is fully functional. It's fine, right? It's not anything weird to leave there. So AV doesn't sync your nervous system with the suit. It creates a pseudo brain lobe that connects to the machine. So that machine has a direct connection straight into your brain. It doesn't even need like the nervous system or anything like that. You think you're part of that machine because that's what your brain's telling you to do. Yeah, so that's kind of my overview of the 4 economic blocks. So the major industry for Copernicus would end up being terraforming, or at least was terraforming for a long time, but since no one's putting money into terraforming, it's falling apart. And with such a major population and, being the first city on Mars, it's getting real bad really fast. And things like the security that the city could pay for, Gallahorn and all that kind of stuff is starting to get more and more incapable of holding up to all the street violence. And it's getting to the point where certain gangs are controlling neighborhoods, and it's just slowly turning into anarchy. So 27 Gundams are known in canon by Gallahorn before the start of the series. Barbatos was not on that list. Gujin may or may not have been on that list since it was a pirate suit. It's entirely possible that Gallahorn could have had reports about it or something. Floros was not on that list. Bale and Kimaris were on that list. Vool was not on the list, but the Astaroth might have been because it was owned by the Warren family. Up in the air whether they did or not. It's kind of up to you. Dentalian was known. Grimmery is known. I think that's all of them. So yeah, about 30, maybe 31 or 32 have been known about. Or they have records of. I'm still also in the camp where Gallahorn recovers all the suits they destroy. So they might have a couple of more Gundams. Oh yeah, I forgot about Marcosius or Hiraboshi. Evan, so we know that Mika has 3 whiskers. Mika's AV was about as good as the original AV. So theoretically, having 2 whiskers makes you about 66% of original AV, with all 3 making you almost on par. But that's where you find out that Mika's actually kind of a bad pilot. That while he shows off as being really good, in fact, because he's using a better AV than everyone, especially against people who aren't using AV, he's able to stay on par with Ein, which is good enough, but doesn't mean he's really an exceptional pilot. Whereas, like, McGillis in the Bale was kicking Ein's butt. So technically all 7 stars have Gundams. Or at least we're led to believe that. We've only seen the Kamaris we've only seen Kamaris and Bale. We hear from Galileo that he pulled Kamaris out of his family warehouses, not out of the 7-star sanctuary or whatever from season 2. So he could have pulled it out of there. It's possible. But that doesn't mean that the 7-star the sanctuary actually has anything but Bale in it. And Deathbringer, yeah, if you guys want to get rich enough, take over terraforming and fix it, and actually work towards fixing Mars, you can. Like, it'll take 100 years, maybe more, but you can start it. I mean, if you want that as character goal, sure, why not? Hell, if you wanted to, you could start terraforming Venus if you so desired. It'll literally take you 30,000 years. You can start. Yeah, the amount of ships is actually something I'm working really hard on because there's in canon there's 13 types of ships. Just 13. 7 of which also are Galahorn use ships. So there kind of has to be. I think if we look at the suggestion documents, which somebody's been going through and doing really good on this stuff, like, yeah. They've been doing a lot of work on that. They've even been, integrating mobile suits from other series into it, which I'm also super excited about. Like, super excited. It's so good. But links in the description if you guys want to read any of that stuff. Oh, that's the thing is, if you were 7-star 300 years ago, you probably were. But the current 7 stars are so devoid from everything because they were born at the top of the pile, they're staying at the top of the pile. There's no going down from there. Or at least, before McGillis, there was no going down from there. Afterwards, Rustle reforms the council completely and eliminates the Falk family, the Issue family, and I can't remember the third guy's name. He was also useless. It was like Boyne or something. I want to assume he keeps Galio there, but we don't actually know. Yeah, Aerolith, I didn't want to, throw you under the bus if you didn't want to say it yourself, so I wasn't going to mention it. Yeah, it's Aerolith in chat if chat comes on live videos or not. I'm not actually sure. I'm trying to find a good way to stick it in, but I was thinking of like putting a black panel on the right side, but it covers the screen if I do anything else. I'll figure it out, but yeah. Yeah, so this is the basics of the 4 blocks. Eventually on future streams we might expand those out a bit more. I have some more ideas. You guys probably have some of your own ideas. You can put them in the suggestion jock if you want now, or you can just tell me when the stream comes by. I don't know when those will be. I can't guarantee anything. Evan, so Gundams have 2 Ahab reactors. Most mobile suits, i.e. almost all of them, have 1. Just 1. Because if you put 2 that aren't completely synced, made at the exact same millisecond together, you get either a black hole or a massive explosion. We're not quite sure which one. So you can't put 2 Ahab reactors together. Like, you just can't. So, by design, the Gundams are twice as powerful as a normal suit. So as far as Venus goes, at least in my opinion, there's a lot more than just 1 colony. Probably, if I were to pick a random number, it'd be like 666 colonies or something like that. Something so massive that there's no way one DM could chart it all out. So there could always be another colony for another thing to happen. There are similar trends in all the colonies, but there's not enough to where you could see them all in one lifetime. So the thing with Vidar is they weren't using that third Ahab reactor. Like, it wasn't affecting the suit at all. It was mounted on the back to just give a different wave signal. So it's like with frequency jamming. If you have a jammer for 5 gigahertz and then a jammer for 10 gigahertz, together you have 15 gigahertz of jamming. Well, if you throw another 7.5 gigahertz, You have 22.5 gigahertz of jamming. And are you blocking a 20 gigahertz line? Are you blocking a 10 line? Are you blocking a 5 line? Or something less? Like, you can't tell. Just because the only thing you can see is the 22. I'm, of course, 40 seconds ahead of you guys, so... you guys are talking about it in chat, and I'm just like, yeah, I know. Yeah, so do you guys want to talk about Mars or Venus, or do you want to do one of the origins now? Because I know some people in the Discord wanted us to talk a bit about the origins kind of in macro, like the overall view of the origins. I think the three I picked were human debris, because somebody asked about it, nomad, because that's one I made up myself, and then space trucker or spaceborne, as well, I would like to call it space trucker. But that one's kind of in the middle. We know some about it, but we're going to make it a lot broader so that it could fit tons of roles versus just a single role that it has been so far. Or, we could just jump straight to working on, like, creating corporations that, run things under Galahorn or around everything, or that kind of stuff. Alright, so 3 for Origins so far, 4 for Origins then. Real quick, the asteroid belt is between Tewaz and the Earth, so Galahorn's center on the Earth. So the asteroid belt is kind of the Wild West of PD, where you have Tewaz actively acting against Galahorn, and Galahorn not sending enough troops or enough people there, and instead paying people to go and patrol the asteroid belt. So you get a lot of interesting conflict there, and you get, some people getting super rich off of farming old battlefields, while other people get there and just die. You have secret organizations making things they shouldn't. You have people researching Ahab reactors and possibly creating black holes. Like, very interesting stuff that could happen there. Um, Venus, I kind of talked about it on the Discord. If you feel like joining or not, I'll put a link in a little bit. Uh, Venus is basically, there's rich people colonies, there's recreational colonies, there's prison colonies, and they all don't like each other. And then a rebel army that's forming due to the lies that Galahorn gave them about colonization. And this rebel army that's forming, taking prisoners to attack the rich people territories, but because Galahorn doesn't care about them. So we'll eventually cover, the asteroid belt and Venus, but those are just quick overviews. We'll get there. Don't worry, we'll be doing more than just one of these. As far as the origins go, so we have human debris, slave soldiers basically. We got the Spaceborne. I'll remove the space trucker part later. I just find it funny. And then we have nomads, which are based kind of off cyberpunk, kind of off other things, but I really like the concept too, so we'll talk about it. So which do you guys want to see? What do you want to talk about first? I really need to figure out this latency thing, because waiting 40 seconds for the first person to say something is kind of strange. Nomad? Nomad. Crossfire goaded for that Venus. Space trucker, space trucker. I don't know if I want to have an origin where they just straight start with a mobile suit. I kind of want to have that be part of a roll table if we're going to have it as a thing. All right, so we have a two-way deadlock between everyone. And Venus in the small corner just kind of yelling into the void. Um, okay, so somebody else said human debris, so I think we're starting with human debris. But real quick, invite people. We want to invite people. Oh, god damn it. OBS makes me sign in or Streamlabs makes me sign in every time to comment. It's very weird and very annoying. If anyone wants to join the Discord, have fun. So we're gonna start with human debris. So human debris are basically orphans, or people who are told to you to be orphans. Whether they had a family or not is kind of not an issue anymore because they're most likely dead. Like, just straight dead. They were probably killed in some sort of pirate raid, or murdered, or you were kidnapped and sold, and they'll never find you again. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm kidding. So human debris. Oh, let me correct my own spelling mistake, though I'm just lazy when typing most of the time. Yeah, so human debris often start as orphans, or people without a home to, people who had parents who couldn't pay for them or didn't want them and threw them away. They ended up selling them to traffickers, or, human, basically slavery. I was gonna call them chattel even, but they're technically not even chattel. They're not worth that much. They are either their parents can't take care of them, their parents are killed, pirates come in and just kidnap them. Like, a lot of bad stuff has happened to these kids. But what has happened really doesn't matter because the stories are so common, so widespread that, it's happened to everyone. And you just kind of have to learn to accept it. If you can't accept it, well, you're gonna live a shitty life now, aren't you? So you have now been traded. If you were, say, if you were strong, you were sent to the mines. If you're attractive, you were sold for based on your looks, and if you are in between, you were sold to fill a purpose. Usually, human debris are purchased to fill the line, to act as convenient body shields for your more seasoned, more able troops who know what they're doing and you pay really well. They're just there to die. Most of the time, they're not even given guns. They're just told, you stand here and you like it. Not even Russian strategy where you get a gun and your neighbor gets the ammo, and whoever dies first, you grab the other one. They get nothing. No body armor, no weapons, no nothing. Surviving as human debris is incredibly, incredibly rare, and means you either know what you're doing or are incredibly fucking lucky. You're taught to kill or be killed, and you're usually either, economically or emotionally or physically stunted due to your horrible lifestyle. You rarely ever get enough to eat because they don't want to feed someone who's just going to go and eat that mobile worker shell and waste them money. We know from some of the earlier post-disaster stuff that the most human debris are worth about 10 pounds of scrap iron, maybe even less, depending on where you get them from. And Replica Rabbit, I actually had somebody who wanted to play who was talking about starting up their own orphanage to fund their PMC. Deathbringer, it was Rambo. But yeah, usually if you get to the level where Mika and they were in CGS, that means they're a line above the rest. They survived their tenure as being just basically a body in the way of enemy bullets, and they've grown to be useful to their organization. They've trained and trained in both recovery of horrible condition recovery of mines. They're combat suited and ready, and they've even had some training in mobile workers, or if you're really lucky, mobile suits. But you got to remember that mobile suits are so drastically expensive, it's crazy. A single CGS had about 50 mobile workers, and had they sold all of them, they wouldn't even be able to afford a mobile suit. A single mobile suit. So it's very rare for human debris to be trained in that. Though in 324 or so, after Tekadon takes the world stage, they start throwing human debris into mobile suits because with AV, their combat experience and conditioning grows so much quicker that they actually become useful. But yeah, Mika and Orga did voluntarily join, and when they're about 13 or 14, something like that. Biscuit also joins. Same with Shino. We don't know about Eugene. It's never brought up. Chad was not, though. And Derma, Derma, Akihiro, and all them didn't really get a choice either. They were purchased. Their homes were raided and they were kidnapped and sold. There's a wide variety of what could happen to a human debris. You could even be a human debris without AV, but usually you don't get that choice. When they purchase you, the first thing they do is they install AV. If you're crippled, you get thrown out. You die. There's about a 60% chance to survive a single surgery for AV. There's a 20% chance to survive the secondary surgery for AV, and there's less than a 1% chance to survive the third surgery for AV. There is no fourth surgery. It's impossible. Mika had 3. Orga, I believe, only had 1. Akihiro might have had 2. I don't think it's ever brought up, though. Because you always see him with the metal disc on his back. Whereas Mika just kind of openly walks around with him. I always assumed that the prongs had to be tender. So actually wearing a shirt without the covering would be uncomfortable as hell. So how I view the human debris origin would be you start as basically nothing. You don't have money. Your skills are either very specialized or very broad. You're not really good in one thing. You're just good enough in a lot of things. But you have the advantage of having AV. So even if you're not skilled in combat, you can, say you're in a mobile worker or a mobile suit, your AV covers for that. We talked about it on the last stream. The baseline AV gives you a +4, level 2 gives you a +6, and level 3 gives you a +8, I think, for constitution malices or body malices. But a +8 to a roll is just as good as being good at combat. Especially if you train up your combat, you can be truly devastating in a mobile suit. But you're not so good in everything else. You're likely uneducated, untrained. If your DM wishes, you might not even be able to read or write. You probably have no real skills outside of, like, here's a gun, shoot it. You can't even maintain it. You don't know how to throw grenades correctly. You don't really know how to work in combat armor. Okay, so yeah, Akihiro did have 2. So he was about 66% of Origin AV. Yeah, you don't really have anything to go on besides the fact that you can hold the line and you can fight in combat. It's very limiting, very isolated. But that's almost entirely what your boss wants from you. They don't want you to be able to be happy, to have a life outside of them. They want you to be isolated from everyone around you except for them. They want you to see them as family. They have to protect their family. Family is a big thing to them. And you are their family. Or your owner is their family. Their owner is their family anyway. Oh, I've just been talking more and more about human debris and kind of the psychology behind it. Yeah, it's a very advanced form of gaslighting. It's actually fairly common in Africa and the poor economic countries that use a lot of childhood soldiers. You develop a sort of taboo. You make them do things they shouldn't, so the only one they can trust is you, because you know what they did and you don't care. Other people aren't going to be so happy about that. And some of the South African countries, they even have child soldiers committing cannibalism because they know if any Westerners catch on to that and they accidentally tell them, they will die. Straight out, they will die, even though it's not their choice. I mean, it's a genius tactic and it's horrible. But that's just how it is. Yeah, mobile workers are much, much cheaper than mobile suits. Especially if you buy the older models. Yeah, I'll figure out how to phrase that to make sense. I can't do it right now. But yeah, it's very common gaslighting tactic. Yeah, well, Band of Brothers was a lot nicer than the life they live. They're that poor German kid who's walking on the side of the road and gets knifed. Just because, you know, the main squad is heading back in their mobile workers. Give me your gun, you walk back. It's only 80 miles. You need to be there by sunset, or by sunup. As far as how much a mobile worker actually costs, we haven't really got into the economics yet, but my rough estimate would be like a mobile armor would run you like 20, 30 grand credits. A mobile suit would run somewhere around the frame of a mobile suit plus an AHAB reactor would run you 250k, maybe 300k. A working mobile suit, half mil, maybe even a mil depending on the suit, and a Gundam would run you about 20, 30 mil. Yeah, I will deal with that eventually, but they try to create a dependent relationship on you, so you are the only one they can go to, the only one they can look forward to, the one who feeds them, the one who houses them, the one who is devoted to. Yeah, they want to develop basically a cult of personality towards their owner. And some people take towards that. There are others who don't. And those are the people you want to look out for. The combat-hardened individuals with military skills and the ability to take what they want. That's being kept by a very, very thin strand. So Evan, there are mobile workers that are built for space. Tekadon uses them, though it's the only one we actually see. So it's probably not a winning proposition to do it. And as far as can a mobile worker kill a mobile suit, in my game, I would like that to be a thing. Yes. But in canon, we have not seen that, so it's most likely no. Hey, the hatred to kill your owner, the one who supplies you with everything, is what keeps you warm at night. And Deathbringer, yep, you've hit it on the head. You start to see what they like, and you try to strive to have that happen, so that they're happy, so that in turn you're happy. You want them to always be happy. The whole can a mobile worker defeat a mobile suit thing is also the same. It's like, can an infantry soldier in UC defeat a Zaku? Yes. Can it defeat a Dom? Yes. How? They haven't figured that one out yet, but it can happen. In Crossfire, that's almost exactly what Tekadon does. They just stick some propane tanks and a couple of thrusters instead of wheels. Good to go. But I feel that would be more of like mobile gun emplacements than really mobile workers. You wouldn't really get an ability to dodge with that. But most likely you wouldn't want the ability to dodge with that. Yeah, so my main way of fighting a mobile suit with a mobile worker was going to be one person who would have like basically a catapult on the back of the mobile worker that would launch barrels of tar or barrels of pitch or whatever you wanted it, even goo or something, onto the mobile suit while they're distracted fighting other people. And then you would then have one other mobile worker light them on fire, so that the that the nano lamina is burned directly through, so the one that it's been fighting the whole time can finally take it off and take it down. But then again, you could also, just mount a giant drill on it, have your mobile worker like leap up onto its cockpit and drill through it. Since they added those knee drills for the Kamaris, like so many dangerous things can happen with knee drills. I'm steepling my fingers too, by the way. Do you guys have any questions about human debris? Because we can talk some more about it if you'd like, or we can move on to the space truckers / Spaceborne. Or even nomads, depending on what you guys want to do next. Nomads will also be fun. I had honestly totally forgot that Gurren Lagann, the God, what was it? It like drilled into the suit's head and that became its head. Replica Rabbit, watch episode 1 through 3 of IBO. It can happen. It does happen. Just because you overthrow the boss doesn't mean you kill them. You could literally just run away. You could steal what you have and run. And hopefully he doesn't catch you. Maybe he does catch you. So yeah, you can overthrow your superior. You can create your own company out of the ruins of it. If, nobody comes knocking for your money or your lives, which also probably happens when that kind of stuff happens. Or, you know, maybe they'll be completely okay with you taking over. It's always a goal to strive for. And who knows, till you do it, something good could happen. Let's see. So, we know at least as far as Gallahorn are literally made sick by augmentations. And so anyone with AV is considered kind of less than optimal. Any augmentations or anything like that make them sick. A lot of the people on Earth either don't believe they exist or just kind of look away and pretend they don't. As far as people on, like, say, Mars or Venus, it's a living. It's a good living, even. Like, it's something disgusting and nasty, but they pay the bills. Like, it is a thing. As far as people in space, like, it depends where you're from or all that kind of stuff. Human debris are not a thing on Earth. Earth is incredibly peaceful for some reason. It's just as soon as you get out of the Earth sphere, like, it gets bad. Even on the colonies, they know what human debris are, but they're not as common. Mostly they're just, you know, drone slaves to the different colony workers. Hey, Mac, how's things? When's episode 16 coming out? Seriously, when's it happening? Hey, you can buy, and you just trade that money directly for what you want. Or if you roll off a table, you could get some benefits or, you know, some malices. All depends on how the system goes. Let's see. Yeah, overthrow their boss. Yeah, human debris on Earth. Yep. Episode 16 was the end of the Brewer arc, I think? Or was that the beginning of, Oh, wait, you mean for that? Yeah, Amax, the part of the Fetty Scum podcast. It's really good. I really enjoy it. You should go watch it. How human debris came about, we don't actually know. We know that people started taking advantage of the orphans left over from the Calamity War, and the extra displaced individuals, probably refugees, were added in there too. And they were most likely just treated as slave soldiers originally. Like, you kidnap a bunch of people, you go, here, have guns. Those guys are trying to kill you. Kill them. And then you leave. Or, you know, you go back into your blast shielded environment where they can't damage you, and they keep fighting. And slowly it became an industry. We don't know exactly where it started or how, but that's how I view it. Beginning anyway. And yes, Space Australia is a thing in this. It's called Venus. We don't go to Venus. Venus is for dirty people. As far as how educated Orga was, probably not highly. He could read. So he had some stuff going for him. But I think he was just incredibly smart and charismatic. Very useful together. Like, very, very useful. As I was saying before, most likely human debris came about the end of the Calamity War, but we don't know for sure. We probably never find out, to be honest. Well, Deathbringer, that means you're from A damn it, crazy ashtray. I will allow it for now. But damn it. But yeah, Deathbringer, that means you're from Space Australia. Accept it. You're from a prison colony, most likely. That, that actually brings up the question, if you dropped a colony on Venus, I think technically it would burn up in the atmosphere. Like, the atmosphere is that dense. Like, it's real bad. That or it would float. I'm not quite sure. I'm not that much of a physicist. I mean, can you escape your status? Maybe. For the most part, we do see it near around the end of the series. People did grow up and get real jobs and become real people, but they also freed the human debris. So, and as far as how far cybernetics have come, they're all illegal. Anything automated, anything robotic like that is illegal. So, very much so. Watch the first 10 episodes of season 2. They came very, very far. But it's all illegal, so don't worry about it. Should we move on to space trucking? Or the spaceborne bits of the population? Naughty, the mechanic for Tekadon, had both of his legs replaced due to a incident with Gallowhorn that we don't know too much about. He had both of his legs replaced. RG from IBO Gecko had his arm replaced after a shuttle incident. Valko Warren from also from Gecko had a chip implanted into his brain. Just because it's done doesn't mean it's not illegal. And if it wasn't on Mars, Naughty wouldn't be allowed to leave. The fact that he was backed by Tekadon, who are basically outlaws at the time, was really the only reason he got to go to Earth. And then he tried to get out as quickly as he could. But we also know that Gallowhorn is secretly researching AV behind the scenes and building their own mobile armors, possibly. So, what we think of Gallowhorn and what's really going on with Gallowhorn are two entirely different things. They don't care about their own rules. But yeah, so on to the space truckers, or the spaceborne members of the population. So, following the Calamity era, lots of refugees were sent into space because the infrastructure on Earth, Venus, Mars were no longer able to take care of them. The asteroid-based mining colonies that had once been there are no longer there. They were destroyed during the Calamity War or abandoned because there's no more need for them. Yeah, there were no need for them or anything like that. They were just there. And so they slowly started moving from place to place. If they had a ship, they would move cargo. If they were combat capable, they would act as guards, as escorts for the less combat capable ships. There are people who grew up salvaging old wrecks from the past world and selling them back to Gallahorn, to Tewaz, to any of the numerous corporations around the star system, ones that were powerful, that could afford that kind of stuff. They made do with what they had. They generally weren't very ambitious. They tried to make enough money to survive to get to the next port, to work some more to get to the next port. Some people eventually would move out, move back down to the planet, or to Mars or Venus or one of the space stations to live. But most stayed in their nomadic life in space, having no one true place to go. They just had to keep moving. But it's not as nice a life as that. With people like that, they became targets for pirates. Ships in IBO cannot be destroyed, or at least not normally be destroyed. So, if a pirate found your fleet, defeated your escorts with mobile suits when you didn't have them, or just won through force of arms, they would bombard your ship, and if they couldn't board it and take everyone on board captive to sell to the slave mines, or, other more nefarious things that one does not talk about, they would damage your ship just enough to where you would slowly choke or starve or run out of food or water and die. And then take your ship and rebuild it and sell it, or use it depending on who you go by. If you were unlucky enough to get captured by such individuals, you would most likely be sold to the slave mines to become human debris, or other less fun things, like actually getting sold to slave mines. And eventually, once that's done, yeah, you'd learn to live with your life or not. Some people who got set to that life got right back on ships and came back. Uh, as far as cybernetics being a thing in the outer sphere, that is true. Basically, the further away from Gallahorn you can get, which Gallahorn keeps a minor presence on Mars, and then from the Earth to the Moon, and that's about it. Anywhere outside of there, you get the stuff that's illegal. And yes, D&D IBO. Yeah, so you either grow up on as a space trucker, you either grow up on a freighter moving supplies and cargo from place to place, making what little you can on trading between locations. Your ship most likely ran on an Ahab reactor, which required no fuel to get from place to place. So profits were low, but that's generally fine. You just had to make enough to eat and survive till you got to the next place to sell your cargo to get more food and continue on. And sometimes bad things would happen to you, sometimes good things would happen to you. I have no doubt that many fleet captains would get incredibly rich incredibly fast with low overhead, just to how their people are set up. They live from their homes and they make do with what they can. They learn to scavenge parts from old wrecks to fix what they need, or make parts work in the way they need. You can make a tech priest. You will be shot as a tech priest. You will be shot quickly as a tech priest. As soon as you have anything to do with AIs, you will be shot out of a cannon into the sun. But yeah, if you wanted, like, it depends on the DM, honestly, but if you wanted like tentacles, you could do that, or replacing your eyes with robot eyes, or getting robot ears. You can do that. I don't think Salvager would be its own origin. I think it would be kind of lopped under Spaceborne if I were to do it that way, just because I don't want to speciate the origins that much. It's just like Spaceborne means you were born in space. That's it. Like, you're born in space, you could technically you could be Galahorn Spaceborne, but that's kind of getting more confusing than it needs to be. We're just gonna What do you mean other awakening types? Digital Devil? Like, you mean like new type and that kind of stuff? This is more of an IBO centered game, but I mean, if they wanted to let it, sure. Like, I assume like something like coordinators would happen eventually, just like once people start messing with genetic engineering and that kind of stuff. Um, I mean, I might throw in a kind of meme ability being what, skepticism, you know, new type powers, like you think you can talk to other people using your mind or teleport or that kind of stuff. That's more of a up to the DM kind of thing. I wouldn't throw something like that in this game. Well, I mean, having a chip implanted in your brain is also likewise illegal. But yeah, you could, you know, connect your brain directly to Galahorn's like web servers and get all of their information with your brain. Plus something like a +3 intellect. You take much more damage with head wounds. Oh yeah, let's get into that, you know. A weird antivirus which takes over people who have brain chips. Maybe those people then get into mobile suits and start killing people. And God, from there they run away into the hills and start digging into random mountains that have been abandoned for 300 years and eventually uncover things. And then it just gets worse and worse from there. Do you want to be able to use your eyes? Well, that'll be $29.95 or 31 payments of $21.95. If you do not pay this payment within the next 8 seconds, you will be permanently blinded. Thank you. Goodbye. Yeah, imagine Pluma's kidnapping people to brain chip them to take over their brains and create slave soldiers. I mean, the AI thing like has so many good Grey Goose situations. Well, not technically Grey Goose situations. It's a Skynet situation, but you can make so many cool things with it. That's why I'm kind of wishing the end included that kind of stuff instead of what they did. But without spoiling anything, yeah. 俺はガンダムだよか. You could plug yourself directly into the brain, give up the ghost. I mean, that is also a good point, Crossrise. Maybe the original human debris were brain chipped, their brains were basically destroyed, and they're run almost exclusively off the chip. AV implanted with AV, the perfect slave soldiers. I mean, the ending, without spoiling anything, the ending worked, but it was definitely far from perfect. Like, there were very massive glaring holes in it, and I have a lot of problem with it. But I won't spoil it here. Maybe on another video. I was actually talking to somebody about a full Moonspeak Let's Play. I don't think I'd be capable of it. It'd be very hard. Maybe a full Galaga Let's Play I could do, but that would just be kind of the same sentences over and over again. So, anyone have any questions on the Spaceborne? I think I've covered most of it so far. Moonspeak is Japanese. It's very old internet culture. The Moonspeak is the Nippongos. I mean, possibly. Maybe the origin will have, like, you know, less body but more agility or something like that. But theoretically, you'd actually be, if you hit puberty and only lived in space your entire life, you'd have something like 9 less bones than a normal human. Oh yes, the Spaceborne are a strange subspecies of Dragonborn, except for instead of humans being given the form of dragons, this time it's that they are given the form of the Void, and they get magics pulled from both space and time. It's very useful. But you only get a poison breath attack, so it's completely worthless up until you get to about level 16. It's only really good for warlocks, or if you go with like a Elder God kind of setup, or maybe a deep one. But I guess you could also go Archfey, but there's no fun in Archfey. As far as most likely they would actually have issues with planets with gravity over about 0.6, I think. Though, actually thinking about it, Ahab reactors generate their own gravity, so most of them would actually be okay in 1 gravity because they'd grow up with it. If you were only living in 0G your entire life, you'd actually have a lot of issues under gravity. But I think Ahab reactors actually do solve that. Most ships run off of battleship grade Ahab reactors. Well, see, you only get Super Mega Chicken form if you choose Dracomancy. Almost exclusively, because if you don't choose Dracomancy, you're an idiot, because you can turn into a dragon. Like, yeah, cool, you can turn into a bear, you get +4 con. But your dragon gets +4 intelligence. Actually, you don't benefit from mind stats. You get plus, like, 12 dex, and, like, 6 strength, like, 20 endurance. It's crazy. Like, you assume the basic form of a dragon, especially if you choose an elder dragon, you get crazy powerful. The only problem is you get real big. But you don't fuck with max level druids, especially shifter class druids. But alright. You guys ready to talk about my favorite origin that I made exclusively for one character and turned out to be a pretty good idea? Which is nomads. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Like 90% of my speech is tangents, man. Well, if you turn big, also didn't know that crazy Astray. So if you turn big, that's generally a good thing unless you're in a dungeon and then you actually, smash yourself transforming. So you have to go whelp form. Like most of the time, caves and that kind of stuff aren't big enough even for Drake form. So you have to go whelp form, and for level like 16, whelp form is actually usually worse than your base form. No, so nomads are semi-based off of the nomads from Cyberpunk, but they're changed. They're only base form related, and that's because we ripped off the same person. You know, Mad Max. Now imagine that in the lowlands on Mars. Though there are most nomads that are in space are considered spaceborne, not nomads themselves. But a majority of the nomads you'll actually encounter on Mars will be people who were from the Calamity War, but weren't lucky enough to be in mobile suits or mobile workers or anything of sufficient value like that. Mainly main battle tank crews and infantry forces deployed to Earth to help the fight against the enemy. Or not deployed to Earth, deployed to Mars to help the fight of the enemy. But as the war had ended, they were abandoned. Like, instead of helping them pull back to, like, say they were based on Earth, helping them move from Mars to the Earth, they were just left there with their weapons, their equipment, and everything. Their commanders would just pull out one night, and they would be abandoned on the planet. Others came to join nomad gangs or were thrown out of their home. CMH. Others would be thrown out of their home and forced to journey around the lands that all or most of the economic blocks didn't see as viable. Just the 1,700-mile long deserts that ring Mars. And many of those people who had been abandoned also hold secrets to Calamity War era technology and what's left over. Some of them will know the locations of Calamity bases with half a dozen mobile suits still inside of them that have just been abandoned and buried for 300 years. They travel from place to place in the from like oasis to highland locations through the deserts of Mars. Most of the time, they'll be using scrapped together mobile workers or even converted main battle tanks from the Calamity War. And some of the others live in like camper vans as they travel from place to place. They learn to the kind of lifestyle they lead and the ancient animosities of their people have kind of form them towards the love of freedom and the hatred of all civilized governments and peoples. Most of them, unlike normal civilians, are actually disgusted by what we call civilization. They think living in one place for your entire life is disgusting and wrong. They wish to see the open sky and the ground beneath their feet. As far as what the nomad groups could be about, yeah, they could worship mobile armors or Gundams or anything like that. My idea for a lot of the origins is I will not be specific about anything, so the players can fill in the gaps themselves, or the DMs, whoever, so that they can fill in the gaps themselves and people can enjoy playing, making whatever character they want to be. I'm completely cool with that. But yeah, most nomad gangs are very small, anywhere from 60 to 100 or so people. They travel from place to place, usually having haunts, but not exactly like uh most having haunts, but not exactly established bases. Areas they're familiar with, and every part of the year they travel to a different one, usually with the season or the time or the weather, whatever works for them. They tend to be highly armed and militant. They dislike outsiders and very much dislike any form of government or regulation. They will actively raid. They'll actively head into cities or civilized area to raid the supplies they need and pull out before they can. And they'll have Galahorn chasing them for months and months into the wilderness before Galahorn has to give up because they can't keep tracking behind them. Um, as far as that goes, yeah. If you want AV, we haven't developed the roll tables just yet, but it might be possible to get AV as another one. But most likely, you'll have to be either human debris or from Venus to have AV at the beginning. Which, eventually, if you guys uncover AVE or uncover a AV origin, you'll be able to get it. But without those, you can't start with it for the most part. Though, if depending on how the roll tables go, will determine that kind of stuff. You might start with the mobile suit, you might start with AV, you might start with something else. Yeah, nomad society tends to be very those who work eat. So you tend to be good at you tend to get really good at your job and other people's jobs. Usually one of the main things you would do is either be an outrider or very good at securing cargo. You'll either be a scout for the group or very good at picking stuff up and moving it before anyone both knows you're there and knows you left. If I remember correctly, if you're over about 12 and you've hit puberty and you try to get AV installed, you're basically going to cripple yourself because it has to fuse with your spine. So if you don't already have it by the time your spine starts to grow, you get some issues. But yeah, there could be anywhere from 10 to 100 different nomad bands just wandering the Martian desert. You never know what they want or what each individual group needs. Sometimes they'll trade with outsiders, sometimes they won't. But they generally are very good at getting what they need or knowing who has what they need. Sometimes, though, nomads are forced to move to cities and become civilized. And usually, if they do that, they'll start to form small groups of other nomads around them as kind of pseudo families. And those kind of people will act as intermediaries with the local nomad groups, because, you know, nomads can also get you what you need if you need specific things that, say, normal people would say no about. Yes, you basically become sovereign citizens of Mars. You know, you might be in the United States, but you're a sovereign citizen, so you don't have to follow their laws. I'm absolutely sure that's how that works. Those are some of the best videos. Yeah, complete tangent though. Like say you get the robot arm like RJ has, you could actually, connect with your mobile suit, or even robot legs, maybe even the brain chip. I haven't decided that far yet. Maybe you'll have to get an access port in your neck that you can plug your mobile suit into, or something crazy like that. There'll be opportunities. I don't think I'll go cyberpunk levels of where everyone needs to be augmented to be even passable by about mid game. But I think it'll be very, very beneficial to get, but also very dangerous to have. I will be designing nomads to be kind of the alternate to Galahorn if you need a place to run to. Whereas you might be being chased by Galahorn. They won't be if you can get them to like you enough and support you, you might actually be able to escape them. Though hiding things like mobile suits will be incredibly difficult. But who knows? Maybe they'll have secret hidden away locations where you could hide mobile suits. Maybe where they hide their own mobile suits. I mean, Crossfire, why don't you just, take out the middleman and have them directly input your brain into the machine and just live as a mobile suit? You could truly become your Gundam. Then again, you wouldn't be with the party like 90% of the time. So unless it was just a combat campaign, it would be kind of sad. Maybe you could plug your brain into like a little drone and fly around in the drone and have the drone sync with the mobile suit. So you like become a plug-in on the inside of the cockpit. Like, they open up the cockpit and all they see is this like metal block in front of them with a giant round circle in it. Become full AI. It would be great. Oh yeah, they were talking about we need a Haro in the game. It's like, yeah, put your brain into a Haro and, sync with your mobile suit. You can be super badass. You can actually become Captain Haro. Be awesome. Alright, I think that's about it for nomads. Is there any questions anyone has? Welcome back. Yeah, my throat's getting a bit sore, so I'll probably be cutting it soon. Do you guys want to build a corp before? As far as researching Calamity War tech, I mean, that's always the question of it's up to the DM. But if I were running it, I would probably let you. You would just have to keep a fairly long stick between you and Gallahorn and not do anything too overt, or they would, figure out what you're doing and try to stop you. Which, if you really got them, if you really seemed dangerous to them, they would start sending entire, fleets after you. But yeah, I would totally let you do that if you want to do that. I mean, it's not the worst thing. In my MS Saga game, I had somebody who wanted to plan to, use the Turn X's black hole reactor to power a city. And then his plan was, if he was ever almost to get or if he was ever to get assassinated, to have a dead man switch connected to the reactor that would breach the enclosure and destroy the entire planet if he died. Which is totally fine with me. I don't care. I think that'd be a fun story. Of course, it probably wouldn't work, but he didn't know that. Oh, dude, you want to go anti-Gallahorn? Great. You want to work for Gallahorn? Great. I am totally game for both. Both could be incredibly fun. Usually people would probably start working for Gallahorn because of a lot of, Gundam viewers are very much fans of the antagonist faction. So siding with Xeon instead of the Federation, Zaft, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, as long as the players could decide on either wanting to work with Gallahorn or against Gallahorn, great. Hell, if you guys wanted to, raid Gallahorn, figure out what their base on Mercury really is about, and then blow it up, I would let you. So, Aerolith, if you started as a nomad, I would probably have you start with a personal quest or probably a level 6 or so boon where you would know the location of a mobile suit. And it would be, your goal would be to get the rest of the party to be willing to get together and go there to uncover it. And then eventually you'd have to, either collect enough resources to get it refurbished or be able to pay someone to refurbish it or something like that. But yeah, if you guys want to build up a corp that'll be at least available in my games, we could go ahead and do that. Then my voice is getting a bit scratchy, so I think I'm gonna end it soon. And then we can do if anyone's part of the Discord, we can do it over chat in the Tabletop General channel later if you want to do some more. Digital Devil, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but Ryama, one of the people who might play if a game ever does happen, actually had a thing where he wanted to create a PMC that would rival Gallahorn using like AV and human debris, and create kind of a PMC to rival Gallahorn. Eventually started into a full-on corp, take over either Venus or Mars, and slowly act against Gallahorn. Yeah. As far as the actual game goes, with a lot of the stuff like that, I don't like the players starting powerful. I like having them slowly build up into being powerful. So I have no problems. Well, I have more problems with you starting with a mobile suit than you guys starting with a quest to get a mobile suit. Because then it becomes more of an RP session to get the item instead of you started with this, so you're better than X, Y, and Z player because they didn't start with this. It's like, you might start with a mobile worker, but a mobile worker isn't all that good comparatively. Like, there are better things in the world. So you start a little bit of a step up, like, that's fine. But, like, the guy who only has the rifle and started out with very little money, but if he can get in a mobile suit and can absolutely trash you, and, you know, once he gets into a mobile suit, he just absolutely wipes out an entire squad of mobile workers. It's like, that's cool, too. Oh, hey, Polar. Is it not, like, super late at night for you? What time is it in Japan? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's no problem with wanting to start with something like that. But yeah, though more likely instead of starting with a heal-up graze, you'd start with something like a G-Rail. Oh, nice. I don't know, ever since the time change, like, I'm not used to comparing with Japan. It's like, it's nighttime here, so I'm like, oh yeah, it has to be nighttime there too, right? Right? Nah, it isn't. But matching things up is really difficult. See ya, man. But yeah, so what kind of corp should it be? Do you know? Do you want it to be like a space-based salvaging, or you could have like a bakery that turned PMC that exists? You know, a reenactment company of like Disney. No, not. Don't want to do Disney because that's copyright. You know, a film studio colony on Venus that may or may not be secretly selling human organs on the side. The Teton Zoos? I mean, we could. Anyone have any other ideas? Or do we want to, you know, build up a PMC called the Teton Zoo? I was trying to think of a good acronym for umbrella, but it's like, no. Um, hmm. I'm trying to think of a good name for a literal film company that hires mercenaries and stuff to act out scenes in the movie and also access PMCs on the side. What is that? Sleipner? Slipner? Slipnir? I think Ragnarok is a little bit on the nose. No, wait. Now, shit. I'd have to imagine, Fenrir being a tactical insertion paramedic organization. I like Valkyrie Studios because it's like, yeah, this is owned by Galahorn. All they do is pump out propaganda all the time. But like, their propaganda is like Captain Xeon or something, and so it's stupid popular. Alright. Alright, so we have a lot to choose from. We have the Titanzu. We have we have junk dealers. We have completely legitimate biomedical corporation. We have Slipner, SBI. Abomination Energy, the proud proud suppliers of today's operation. The midnight, I mean, I'm not the late night Fenrir. Yeah, late night Fenrir. Let's go with that. Yeah, that one. Chariot Productions, Cheetah Films, Virulent Agents. It's in the Virulent Agent. IE Corp makes me sad. I mean, tech-based corp would be like what? EL Electronics, PMC. All right, outside of the more memey stuff I've been doing, Ahab check, yes. All right, so out of all of them, which one should we expound upon? Which one should we make more in depth? Actually develop itself into something? We have the choices here. I mean, eventually we can do all of these if you want, or, you know, if we want to get rid of them, we can. But I'll leave it up to you which ones we start with. And then I guess, like, maybe next lore stream we'll do like 2 or 3 more. Or maybe expand on the list a little bit, remove some of them, or combine a couple. Alright, so we have 2 for SVI, 2 for Slipner, 1 for junk dealers. All right, I guess we can split it between the two. We'll do like 10 minutes of Slipner, half of a SBI. Oh, right, of course. No, wait. Golden flowers would never wilt. Um, I'm kidding. Yeah, Tekadon is the iron flower that never wilts. I was making a joke of the gold flower. Uh, I'm not really having Tekadon be a thing. If somebody wants to make it a thing, that's their choice, but I won't include it in the base game. Does that seem like a good idea for SBI? Okay, so do we want SBI to not be a secret? Okay. Hmm. All right, see you, Arielith. All right, is that good? All right, so what would we like Slipner to be about? Or Sleipner? Slipner? However you pronounce that one. YouTube keeps sending me notifications every time I go live. It's like, really? I'm fully aware that I'm live. I really hope I am anyway. Or I could all just be imagining this, and I could be crazy. So what should our ex-Galahorn Corporation that really just wants to get back at their former friends and family be about? But I'm imagining this whole entire world. I'm really just crazy sitting in a box underneath my bed. But I'm imagining everything. It feels so real. I can even smell that weird perfume on my hands. It's been driving me crazy for like 2 hours. Wow. I'll have to read that later. Oh, is it an IE or IR? Hmm. Maybe Slipner is a mainly parked out in the asteroid belts between Jupiter and Mars. Uh, Kind of a combination of working with Tewas for funding to scavenging old battlefields for ancient weapons, hoping to get lucky, along with raiding or and doing raids on Galahorn territory. Hmm. Maybe they're just a corporate front for kind of a black organization within Galahorn. They act as if they're against Galahorn and do everything Galahorn's against, but really what they're doing is like they're fanning out into the underworld to try to find any reference to, like, say, mobile armors or forbidden technology that really shouldn't see the light of day. And so they're actively acting against Galahorn on the surface, but really they're feeding information to Galahorn on the underchannels and trying to keep things like mobile armors that awaken after the Calamity War, Dance Life, other more dangerous WMDs hidden away, and they move into like capture and steal that kind of stuff and then deposit them in some sort of secret containment facility, like say on Ceres or one of the other planetoids in the asteroid belt. Well, see, we're just building corps here. We're not building storylines. Like, I would leave something like that up to or are you saying that they started out this way and then eventually Galahorn actually did betray them, so they started being what their image was? Hmm. So something like that. Though I'm pretty sure I'll end up rewriting this a couple of times. Do you think we should actually give a reason why they are being outlawed by outlawed from Gallahorn, or should we keep that a secret and then just let people assume or let DMs make decisions about them? Because it's a shadow organization, so having a real mystery behind them gives a lot of leeway for it to do stuff and also makes them interesting. Like Digital Devil, if you ever want to like use them for a storyline or something, if it's one of my games, let me know and I'll let you decide. I have no problem with that, but I also like keeping it open so that in case some other DM picks it up, they like decide what they want to do with them. It's the same thing I'm doing with the Calamity era. I'm trying really hard not to have anything happen before or during it. I just want the aftermath. Like, you see the broader picture, but that's it. Like, I don't want to decide anything for that, so people individually can choose what had happened. Like, I have my own Skynet theory, but I'm never going to put that in this, like, at all. Hey, stupid. Go out. But yeah, my throat's starting to give out. Um, I think I'm gonna cut it off for there. If any of you guys are in the Discord and you want some help making some corpse a little bit later, I can help out. I think I'm gonna go make some breakfast and probably go for a walk. And after I'm back, I'll have some time to play around. So as it stands right now, I think next stream will be on Sunday. Some more Gundam versus Zeta Gundam. We'll probably do. I'm gonna aim it for about 3 hours. Hour of Federation, hour of AUG, or hour of AUG slash Federation, hour of the Titans, and then hour of Xeon maybe. Next Monday we'll be doing another half rules, half lore section most likely. And if I get any spare time, yeah, if I get any spare time over the week, I'll possibly do like another lore stream or something. It's like I had a lot of fun today. Plus, we get to talk about stupid stuff. That's always fun and get stuck on tangents. There is a suggestions doc in the description of this video. You can go ahead and add anything to it you want. Please don't remove anything from anyone else. Like, let them get a choice too. I do actually harp on that kind of stuff, so I will know if you do. Oh, oops! My recent link is still Fetty Scum. So let me grab another link to the Discord if, Discord didn't die on me. Which it might be stuck in processes. Yes, it is. Oh, it was updating, that's why. Stupid Discord. Feel free to join the Discord. It's not all about the tabletop, but a lot of it's about the tabletop. We can have some funs. And anything you guys want to talk about, we can in the tabletop in general. But I will see you guys all later. Night all.